All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming here tonight. Um, I see a lot of familiar faces. I see a lot of new faces that hope to see over and over again. Um, we're all here because we care about Villa Park. And this election is an opportunity for everybody to come together and do what's in the best interest of Villa Park. Knowing the candidates and where we all stand is an important component of that. So I want to thank all the candidates for coming here tonight. Additionally, I'd like to thank Monte Casino, who's offering some food, as well as the new sushi place that's on the corner of St. Charles and Westmore Myers, Tsuzuki Sushi. They've got some food offerings inside there, so help yourself. I also want to thank Leslie from Robust Promotions for helping and putting all this together. I'd like to thank Judge Suter for donating his time and working with us and putting this event together. So thank you very much, Judge.
You're welcome.
Hopefully this is the first biannual performance or get-together village forum that we're going to have. And maybe every other year when there's an election in town, we can all come together and get to know the candidates. This could be the start of something great. None of the candidates, myself included, know any of the questions. We made it very secure and made sure that this was not the case. So this is a good opportunity to get to know the candidates, get to know their hearts, get to know what's on their mind. And I think it's appropriate that you get a bunch of politicians together and it's a windy day, right? So, but thanks everybody for coming, and let's enjoy, let's learn, and welcome. But most important, April 6th, let's vote. So I'll turn it over to Leslie.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight. This is awesome to see Villa Park really taking this much of an interest in this election, and I'm really proud to be part of this community. I'd like to start by giving you a little bit of a background on our judge this evening. The Honorable Judge Ron Suter has served as a DuPage County Circuit Judge from 2003 until his retirement in 2018. Before taking the bench, Judge Suter was a DuPage County prosecutor and then a civil trial lawyer. Since his retirement, Judge Suter has acted as a mediator and arbitrator in private civil disputes. So we're in really good hands tonight. As Jack mentioned, we got the questions from all of you, the residents, for the candidates this evening. The only people that have seen those questions were my firm, Robust Promotions, and Judge Suter. The candidates have not seen these questions and do not know what they're going to be asked this evening. That's why we're calling it a discussion or a conversation more than a debate. And at this point, I think I will introduce the candidates, have them start coming up. Yes? All right. All right, we will start with our candidates for the Villa Park president. We have Nick Cazzone. Just take a seat. Whichever one you get to pick. All right. And then we also have Robert Bob Wagner. So these are your two candidates for Villa Park president. For our candidates for the Villa Park trustee positions, we have John Jack Kozar. We have Jack Corkery. Cheryl Tucker is with us this evening. Mark Bregman. Deepa Kumar. and Matthew D'Alessandro. There you go. All right, and without further ado, I will let you take it away, Judge Souter. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Leslie. I'm so used to wearing this now, it's better to take it off so you can hear me. Just a couple introductory remarks, okay? Leslie made it pretty clear that besides Leslie, I've been the only other person to see the questions. And actually, I spent time today going through them, kind of refashioning some of them. They came from probably most of you that are here, and I have reworded some of them to a little bit. But let me say this, we got so many good questions that came in that I know we're not going to have enough time to get to all of them tonight, so I apologize. It's my understanding that at the conclusion of this, the candidates are likely to stick around for a bit, so if there's something you want to know that you didn't hear, you can probably, they'll be happy, I'm sure, to talk to you, whatever you want to know. But we're going to cover a wide variety of topics. This is not a debate. And having been a civil judge and now a civil mediator, I expect everyone will act in a civil manner, including all of you. I don't think we're going to have any issues there, but just so you know, I didn't bring a gavel, and I have no authority anymore, but I'm sure we're not going to have any issues tonight. So I'm looking forward to a really good forum, a really good discussion on the issues. As I say, I've got the questions right here. And for those of you that are old enough, like me, I can tell you they were hermetically sealed in a mayonnaise jar located on Funkin' Wagnall's porch for most of the day. That's an old Johnny Carson Tonight Show thing, if you don't know. So we want to get right to it because we are going to be pressed for time. We do have a timekeeper. He's got a nice little timekeeping device there, which we're going to stick to that schedule. We're not going to have any rebuttals. I've got an order for asking candidates, and I'm going to shake that up too, so I don't call on the first person each time, so everybody gets a chance. I've done everything I can to make this as fair as possible. The format, for those of you who may not know, we're going to have opening remarks from each candidate, 2 minutes, and before when we open. After that, each candidate will get 2 minutes to answer the question. Again, no rebuttal for any of the questions. And at the end, at the conclusion of the questioning, each candidate will have 1 minute to make some closing remarks. So we're going to start with the opening remarks from the candidates. I start with the candidates for the president, and I invite Mr. Cazzone to the microphone.
Thank you, Your Honor. Appreciate that. Appreciate Jack having us here tonight. My name is Nick Cazzone. I'm a 36-year resident of Villa Park. We moved here in 1985, and my plan was to fix up the house we bought and move back to Elmhurst. And as you can see, that those plans went awry. We really loved the town. We loved the neighborhood we were in. We loved the residents here. As our kids grew older, I coached our kids in baseball, basketball, and soccer. As they moved on to Willowbrook High School, I was involved with the Villa Park with the Willowbrook Athletic Boosters. I was president for 4 years. I was also involved with the Step It Up for Students referendum, where we raised $137 million. We passed the $137 million referendum on the first try. Been also involved with the Dan Gibbons Turkey Trot for over 30 years, where we've raised over $3 million to fight hunger in DuPage County. I'm also a small business owner, and I think that's what gives me the up on being president here. I know what it's like to go through tough times and to make tough decisions. And once you make that tough decision, you have to live with it. It's an environmental consulting firm, and that's come in handy in a few times when the village has bought property. When we bought AK Mulch and AT&T property to move AT Mulch there, I was able to review all the environmental reports for that and give the village an idea of where we were standing environmentally with those properties. Also was able to push through the sale of 235 East North Avenue when there were some environmental concerns. I was able to sit down with the purchasers of that property and give them some comfort in knowing that there was not a lot of environmental issues there. One thing I would like to bring up is it's been brought up that I am against a pool in a rec center. I'm not against a pool in a rec center. I just think we need to be smart. And one of the things that I've learned as a businessman is when you don't have the money, you can't spend it. I do think we need three things. We need to finalize where this pool and rec center is going to be built. We need to figure out exactly what we're going to build and how much it's going to cost.
Wrap it up, please.
Okay. There's been talk about $10 million in Springfield. That's not there yet. It's there for us, but we don't know when we're going to get it. But I think we need to be smart in Villa Park and spend our money wisely. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wagner.
Thank you, Judge Suter. Thank you, Karen and Jack, for hosting this event this evening. Bob Wagner, for those of you who don't know me, I've lived in Villa Park for 38 years. We've owned 2 homes, one on 30 North Summit. We now live on the southwest side of Villa Park. Raised our 3 children, attended District 45 and District 88 schools. I've had 30 years of involvement in village government. Served as a liaison, commissioner, chairperson of the Environmental Concerns Commission, a member of the library board for 15 years, 4 years as board president. In my second full 4-year term as on the village board. But I don't want to stress so much as the positions that I've held, but I want to talk about the things that I've done. My campaign is not so much about rhetoric, it's about action. And I want to tell you some things that I have done. There's been a lot of discussion about changing ordinances or amending ordinances. I want to talk about an ordinance that I had amended. This is section 15-301 of our code that dealt with noxious weeds. Many residents were planting pollinator gardens and monarch way stations, and milkweed, which is a source of food for monarch butterflies, was a noxious weed. I advised the manager that I wanted that changed, and that I initiated that change in our code. I also want to tell you that I'm very concerned about disaster preparedness. I went through training for the CERT, which is the Community Emergency Response Team, and after that, I realized that our CERT program was inactive. And I met with former Police Chief Mike Lay, Deputy Chief McCann in their office, and we resurrected our CERT program. We now meet on a quarterly basis for training and plan and events that we will participate in. I also created the Bike and Pedestrian Transit Subcommittee that would make sure that we implement our bike and pedestrian plan and deal with issues like rail crossing safety and safer biking and safer walking in our community. If you elect me, I will continue this action. And I want to just stress, one significant thing that I want to impress on you is we had a very important vote on recreational cannabis and how that revenue would be spent. I voted that a third of that would go towards recreation.
Wrap it up, please.
My opponent did not. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just want to say one more thing before I invite the trustee candidates up. I respect all of these candidates. They're here for the right reasons. They're here for Villa Park, and I think it's a wonderful thing that they're all doing. So with that, I'm going to invite Mr. D'Alessandro up to the mic, please.
Good evening. My name is Matthew D'Alessandro, and I'd like to thank all of you guys for coming out here for this event and showing your care for the community. And I'd like to thank Jack and Karen for hosting it and Robust Productions for putting this on. As I said, I'm Matthew D'Alessandro. I'm a 24-year resident, lifelong resident of Villa Park. I reside on the 800 block of South Michigan Avenue. I spent my time growing up playing in Villa Park youth baseball, youth football, the Villa Park Mariners swim team. But some of my greatest memories as a kid growing up was just playing out with my friends in our front yard and playing wiffle ball for You know, until we all had to go to work, that's all we did every year of every summer. And so that's what I see in this town. It's a town for families and everybody to come and enjoy. And I'd like to see that proceed in this town. And I left Villa Park to go to college at Valparaiso University and obtain my Bachelor's of Science in Meteorology. But during my time away, I grew even more of an appreciation for Villa Park, and that's one reason why I wanted to move home. At my time at Valparaiso, I got leadership of experience as the vice president and president of my small fraternity, and I had to learn how to make tough decisions and deal with tough situations. And I think that prepares me to be on the board and to help make tough decisions, but also to work together. I like to preach a collaborative effort. Everybody's going to come up there with different opinions, and that's the great part. And I would be really excited to work together with people to see what we can do to make this community continue to grow and reach its potential that we know it can be. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Kumar.
Hi, I'm Deepa Kumar, and I'm running for trustee, as you guys know. I'm a 35-year resident of Villa Park. I grew up in Villa Park. I've been here pretty much all my life. I went to District 45 schools, and then I continued on to Willowbrook High School. I was their valedictorian the year they graduated. Villa Park has done a great deal for me, and it's time for me to give back to Villa Park. Now, what do I mean? I have some experience that I've gotten as a professor at Northwestern University, experience that I've gotten as a management strategist with various firms and doing consulting work, and I want to take that experience and solve some of the issues that we have in Villa Park today. Now, these issues include a few things. One thing, I think we need a long-term plan for Villa Park. Cities like Elmhurst have a long-term plan. Glen Ellyn has a long-term plan. We have what's the start of a long-term plan, but not a true long-term plan for Villa Park. It needs to include metrics and timelines in order for it to be successful in getting things done around here, and we need to get those things done around here. We need to address the issue of Lufkin Park. Lufkin Park was taken down. I understand that the pool was past its use, and I understand that it had to be taken down, but afterwards we got nothing in return. So for me, the first thing I want to address is repurposing Lufkin Park. And there are some starts to that. The biggest thing I need is community input. Okay, I've already put out a lot of information. I need everybody's input in order to refinish Lufkin Park in the instance that you vote me as trustee, and even if not, because I will be on it anyway. Okay. The second thing we need to do is think about the centralized location for the new Aqua Center. There is money for it. Nick already pointed out that we're not sure when we're going to get it, but I don't like to wait till we get it. I would like to have a plan in action so that when we do get it, we get what we want in terms of an Aqua Center, whether it be indoor, outdoor, whether it have community space or not. We need to reach out to the community to deal with that. And finally, I would like to address the infrastructure situation in Villa Park. Today, I actually walked down Maple Avenue. It's a sad situation. They don't even have a curb. Okay,
Wrap it up, please.
Yeah. This is an issue that we need to address as well. So that's dependent on communication. Communication has to improve in Villa Park, and I aim to set that situation right.
Thank you. Mr. Bregman.
Mark Bregman. I always think of a million things to say before I get up here, and then I get up here and I forget everything I was going to say. Just want to introduce myself. I'll give you a little bit of background. I was with the Villa Park Police Department for 29 years. I retired with the rank of lieutenant. During my 29 years, I spent a lot of time coordinating with different public areas such as the middle schools, the grade schools. I worked very closely with both districts. I worked close with the parent-teacher associations. I worked with the seniors committee. I represented our union. I negotiated 2 contracts with our current manager. So I spent a lot of time dealing with things like Neighborhood Watch, the CERT program that Mr. Wagner mentioned, Citizens Police Academy, all these types of programs. And during that time, I developed a lot of great relationships with the people of Villa Park. And obviously I moved to Villa Park. I've got 6 children, 2 of which are very young, still at home, and this is where I want to raise them. Running for trustee just seems like the next natural step in the course of my life. I've been serving this community for a long time, and I want to continue to serve it. One of the things I really want to focus on is obviously the tax revenue. Everybody talks about all the things they want to do, but it's hard to do these things without money, and the referendums get kind of old after a while. We need to bring in businesses, and for the life of me, over the last 20 years, I can't figure out why more businesses aren't coming to Villa Park. We need to support the businesses that we do have, and I think that, you know, that's something that the board really needs to focus on. So one of the things that I want to really look at is why aren't businesses coming to Villa Park? Why aren't contractors coming to Villa Park? You know, what is it about Villa Park that kind of turns people away? Because all of our surrounding communities seem to be growing, and Villa Park, although it's growing, is growing at a much slower pace. So that's the area that I'd like to really focus on. Thank you.
Thank you. As this progresses, we're perfecting our timekeeping methods here, so this is a little easier to see now. We'll have the green, yellow, and red. I'd invite Ms. Tucker to the podium.
Not tall. Okay, everybody knows I was born and raised here, so I'm not going to go into that detail and my love for Villa Park. But the people of Villa Park do know I have integrity, and I'm going to use my 2 minutes to set the record straight from the Junior Women's League Forum. As a trustee, you know that not everybody will be happy with what you vote on. And you, Mr. Kozar, have every right to hold a grudge against me for not voting for your storage container. But everyone knows it's here, and my vote didn't matter for your storage container anyway. You got it? By the way, it is still not screened, but I will not allow you to make an accusation against the incumbent for ticketing all the other 23 other businesses in Villa Park for the storage containers. First of all, they didn't get tickets, they got notifications. Second of all, I wasn't the one that pointed out at the planning and zoning meeting on June 11th that there were 23 other businesses in Villa Park that had storage containers in the village. I also wasn't the person on October 30th that called anonymously to the village manager and the community development director complaining that there was numerous businesses in Villa Park that had storage containers in violation, and what were they going to do about it? Some of the people in Villa Park might wonder how you knew that you were the only one that had a legal storage container when some of the businesses had storage containers for over 15 years. As a trustee, I will continue to uphold my oath as a village trustee and follow through doing the best for what Villa Park needs. All the people of Villa Park, every individual in Villa Park, every business. We are all Villa Park people. There's no single person here that is better than anyone else. And I will keep voicing that opinion for each individual in Villa Park.
Thank you. Mr. Corkery.
Hello, my name is Jack Corkery. I'm 23 years old, 23-year resident of Villa Park, Illinois. My family first moved here in 1951 when my grandparents bought a house. Oh, sure. Is that better? All right. My name is Jack Corkery. I'm a 23-year resident of Villa Park, Illinois, 23 years old, so I've been here my whole life. My grandparents first moved to town in 1951. They bought a old kit house over on North Myrtle Avenue. So we're going on about 70 years there now, hoping to make it another 70 more. We're in it with this town for the long haul, and I am in as well. That's why I'm running for trustee, because I want to be a steward for Villa Park. If you look at the suburbs today, they're at a very interesting place in time. We see a lot of people coming in, a lot of businesses coming in, and a lot of money coming in. If you look at towns like Elmhurst or Lombard, parts of them are barely recognizable from 10 years ago. And I think that's good, and I think we ought to harness that, but we got to make sure that we don't lose what makes Villa Park such a great town when we do it. I love this town because it's inclusive, it's affordable, it's a place where seniors can come to retire when they're on a fixed income, it's a place where young families can come to start out when they don't have a lot of money, and there's lots of public space, lots of parks, lots of great places to raise your kids. I think that's rare, it's harder and harder to find in America today, and we really have it here in Villa Park. It's a beautiful place to live, it's an inclusive place to live, and I hope to call it home for many, many years to come, and I hope that anyone here who wants to can do so as well. So I want to be your voice on the village board to make sure that your concerns are heard, to make sure that what you want is enacted by the village government, and to make sure that the things that you need are taken care of by the village government. So that is why I'm running for trustee, and thank you for listening. Thank you for hosting the event. Thank you for moderating, and I look forward to talking to you all more in a bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kozar.
Thank you. So, my wife Karen and I started this business a few years ago. This is going to be our third season. And I think this patio really represents our values. We have taken something that, was a negative in town, and we turned it into what a lot of people are calling a community town square. It represents our values in that it's a fun, family-friendly place where everybody is welcome. You can bring your kids, you can bring your dog, there's something for mom and dad, you get ice cream, bite to eat at the food truck. This is more of what I want to see in Villa Park. I want to bring businesses in, I want to help the businesses that are here. If elected, I will be the only trustee that is a local business owner. That aspect needs to be represented here in town. I'm an attorney, and I've been advocating for people my whole career as an attorney. I want to advocate for everybody here and everybody in Villa Park and give them that voice that they deserve and that at times they will need. I understand real estate development. I understand contracting. I understand working with government, the EPA, getting grants, also the legal system. It's not just my words, it's my action. I stand up here, I have invested in the future of Villa Park. I invested my time, my money. There's a lot in Villa Park that is worth saving, and it's good, and we want to protect it. But we have to steer the ship in the right direction. As trustee, I'm going to promote Villa Park in every opportunity that I have. I want to bring people together. I want to problem solve. I want to increase revenue coming from our businesses, and in doing so, take the burden off our residential property taxes. A rising tide lifts all ships, and this is what I want to bring. The election is on April 6th, but the real work begins April 7th. So let's keep this momentum together, and let's all work together, because we are better together. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, first question. And just to give you a heads up, Mr. Wagner, you'll answer the first question first. What are your plans to continue to support existing businesses and encourage new business development, especially in the underdeveloped areas of Villa Park?
Thank you. In terms of recruiting more businesses, one thing that I want to do is tap into a resource that I have some experience with. It's called ICSC. It's the International Conference of Shopping Centers. I've been to 2 of those conferences or conventions in Las Vegas, It's a tremendous marketplace for attracting new businesses. If you would see the number of people, franchises that are present there, I want us to use that more. The other thing I want to tie in with is biking and walking friendly designation for our community. That has a direct connection to economic development. We have more and more businesses along the Prairie Path, not just Fueling Creme. We have Standard Meadery. We have CAPS and JNR Cycle, who would benefit from better access off of our trails. So this is something that I've worked on, I've advocated for, I've championed better walking and better biking facilities. I also feel that we should diversify the businesses that we are trying to attract to Villa Park. The more we diversify, the more stable our economy is. I've heard many complaints that we have too many tobacco shops. There's too much video gaming. I agree. We need to diversify, and we need to make sure that we have a kind of a wide spectrum of businesses in town. We need to work harder at that. We need to be more aggressive when we marketing our open properties and open storefronts. And I think if we do that, if we use those resources, we'll be successful in having a more robust business community in Villa Park. And I also want to mention, I'm a 2-year member of the Chamber of Commerce and fully support their efforts as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gazzone.
Same question?
Same question.
Oh,
Oh, let me
okay.
explain that.
Okay.
Everyone's going to answer the same question.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. All right. No problem. No problem. I agree. We need better businesses in Villa Park. We've got a lot of great ones. We need to work more deeply with our community development and our economic development commissions. We don't advertise Villa Park enough. You know, all I hear from people is Villa Park is the hidden gem of the western suburbs, but we don't promote that enough. A couple of years ago, we were named, 8th best place to live in Villa Park, or in the U.S., and the 28th best place to raise your kids. We need to promote that type of feeling throughout, not only in Villa Park, but throughout DuPage County. One of the things that we need to do also is to be bringing in builders that will build better houses, but we need to help them. A lot of builders don't want to come into Villa Park because it's a tough place to live, or it's a tough place to build. Some of our permitting processes are kind of tough. I'd like to get a group together of builders, real estate agents, and our community development commissions, and work with them and see exactly what we need to do. Because once we start increasing our housing, that'll bring in better businesses. It'll bring in a lot more money. It's been talked that we need to bring in money into Villa Park. But I think if we can get a commission together and bring all of those people together, it'll affect the entire community, business community, our residential community, our bike paths. It'll build up the whole town. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to repeat the questions just so everyone understands. I'm going to ask a question. You're all going to answer the same questions, all right? I thought that was the fair way to do it. So what are your plans to continue to support existing businesses and encourage new business development, especially in the underdeveloped areas of Villa Park? Ms. Tucker.
Thank you. First of all, I think the businesses in Villa Park that have been here for a long time and are the foundations for this Villa Park for over 60 years, we should pay more attention to what they have to say. Sometimes we're so active on trying to get new businesses in here that we don't cater to the older businesses that have kept Villa Park going for so long. As a trustee, I really believe we should listen to everybody in the town. That means all the residents in town have an idea of what type of businesses they want in town, and that we should be listening to them. We have multiple businesses in here spread all over. they're taking competition against each other because we're not listening to what we really need. Family businesses is a great thing to have in here, but we also need to listen to other things. There's a lot of residents in here that need other facilities. I mean, there's the senior citizens in the town that we really need to think of them, and senior housing, which we don't have here. There's a lot of business bus trips that go through here. Our bus route isn't exactly the best for the businesses in here. Maybe we need to do something about that also. But the older businesses really need to be taken advantage, given the same compensation as the new businesses in here. The underdivision areas, yes, community development and our economic team needs to look at them. They also need to take advantage of all the real estate agencies we have in town and listen to what they have to say to help us get these businesses in town. The advertisement of those businesses off of a website is way past overdue. We need to use people to care. As Mr. Crazone pointed out, we're, eighth in the thing. What are we saying that we're that big in town, but we can't get businesses in here because of our permit category and our codes are preventing them from doing what they need to do, the new businesses coming in here. We really need to work together as a village to promote all these businesses and support them.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Corkery.
So the question was about supporting existing businesses and bringing new ones in, especially in underdeveloped parts of town. There's been a lot of talk about ordinances and codes, and I'll spare you those. I think one of the big things we can do that isn't talked about as much to support and develop business here in town is work on our infrastructure. A lot of our transportation infrastructure is badly degraded, in need of repair, in need of replacement. The question was about the under-supported parts of town. I live up on the north side of town. I'm the only candidate running who's from up there, and a lot of times it seems like we do get the short shrift in terms of infrastructure investment. I've heard that a lot when I'm out talking to people, and if you want to take a look at my tires, the proof is right there. And it's good for business to work on our infrastructure, especially in those parts of town. If people come here and they see that our roads are badly degraded, that they're not easy to ride on, not easy to drive on, they won't come here, they won't spend money, they won't shop, they won't eat, and that's a problem for us. So road infrastructure, I think, should be a #1 priority in terms of supporting businesses. I think in the same vein, slightly connected, we also need to work on developing our pedestrian and bike infrastructure a lot. If you look at surveys of what people want from their towns, what people want from suburbs, what draws people in, walkable, bikeable, green spaces downtown are the #1 thing that people are looking for. We've got kind of a unique challenge here in Villa Park because we don't just have a downtown. We've got several sort of scattered all over. And they're not especially well connected if you want to bike. If you want to walk, your best option is to drive. And we need to make it easier for people to drive, certainly. But I think we should also encourage people to be walking and biking. We've seen a lot of growth right in this area because, I think, in part, it's so walkable. And we've also seen a rise of problems in parking in this area, and that needs to be addressed too. I believe if we make it easier for people to walk, to bike, to take the green option perhaps, to walk and shop and eat locally, I think that would be a great help to all the businesses we already have here. We can support the small businesses we have here, and hopefully we can bring new ones in as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Kozar.
So, how do we attract new business, and at the same time, how do we help our existing businesses? To attract new business, part of what our problem is our reputation. And in part, it's well-deserved. We have a reputation for being difficult to work with. Our permitting is difficult to achieve and to do. We need a solution-based concept in our village management, where when people come in to apply for permits, that the village works with them and says, this will work, this won't work, here's a solution, this is how we can do it. We need to work with our existing businesses by actually inviting them into the conversation, giving them a seat at the table, and saying, what is it? What do you need to be successful? What are the challenging parts of owning a business here? And how can we come together as a group to do it? I hear comments that our businesses within Villa Park are competing with each other. But I use the same phrase over and over again: a rising tide lifts all ships. We don't compete necessarily with the businesses within our borders. Villa Park competes with Elmhurst. Villa Park competes with Addison. Villa Park competes with Lombard. It's the job of our government and our trustees and our village president to promote Villa Park at every step that we can possibly do. We need to attract all those people from the surrounding communities to come into our village and spend their money in our village so that we can collect taxes on their money, so that we can use it for our infrastructure, for our roads, for supporting our businesses, for giving grants, for doing facade improvements, for things of that nature. But it all starts with a conversation, and it all starts with a conversation with our existing businesses to say, what is good, what is working, and what isn't, and how can we change it? And then from there, spread out and attract those businesses and change our reputation for somebody that will work together with the new businesses coming in. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. D'Alessandro.
All right. One thing that got me involved in the community right away and wanted to do this was back in high school back when I was in high school. The original road referendum that currently is in its final stages was being talked about and brought up, and I got involved in learning and educating my fellow community members on what that would be about and why it'd be beneficial. And one of the best things that I learned there was that the roads are incredibly critical for bringing in businesses, but also keeping growth in our current businesses. As Jack Corkery previously stated, if the roads are not good, if the infrastructure is not good, people are not going to want to come here. And that's going to affect our current businesses, and new businesses are not going to want to come in here. So my main focus on that is the roads. Not to sound redundant, but I believe the roads are critical, but not only just for one time. We need to secure a plan to have our roads resurfaced and work with engineers, architects, and others involved to determine when is that critical point. Is it 5 to 7 years? Is it 10 years? Because we can't go 20 years every time to resurface our roads, and we have to do it with fiscal responsibility in our budgets to make sure that we're budgeting enough every year to get some type of resurfacing done and to maintain our roads and infrastructure for future growth. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kumar.
Well, I come from a business school, so the first thing we do to improve businesses is think about how we can best do that. What are our best strengths within Villa Park? Now, Villa Park is spread into 5 different business districts at this point, and they each have their strengths. If you look at North Avenue, there are strengths on North Avenue. A lot of people complain about it, but right now I see a strongly developing auto center on North Avenue. Just look around you and see how all the automobile fix-it shops are coming to that area. Now, this might be in part due to the great program we had at Willowbrook High School. We have a great auto shop program within Willowbrook High School, and maybe some of those people have set up those auto shops on North Avenue. Look around you right here. This is an area that is absolutely perfect for niche businesses. What do I mean by that? Specialty shops. Specialty shops like Fuel and Creme. Specialty shops like the Pioneer Garden and Feed. Specialty shops like Corner Bookstone, which got funding from putting out a great Facebook page when they were going to run out of business, and this is the kind of shops we have around here. So let's leverage those businesses. Let's bring such businesses into this area. What about Roosevelt Road? Guess what? There was a lousy Dominic's over there. Everybody remembers that. You couldn't get anything over there. Well, right now, the Pete's Fresh came in, and all of a sudden, we see all sorts of businesses coming into that area. Let's reach out to that type of business for that area. You see a lot of ethnic businesses. I'm the only candidate out here who's diverse, who can reach out to these ethnic businesses and say, okay, let's get mangoes into town. Let's get, basmati rice into town. And then we have a whole other sector, St. Charles. Now, St. Charles is our older businesses and somewhat our entertainment district. Let's try to cater to those kind of businesses. We have Titan Games over there. So the thing is to reach out to the right type of business, reach out to the older businesses to help them out, and reach out, and I'm all about reaching out to figure out how to grow Villa Park so our tax revenue
Time,
increases and everything else increases with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bregman.
Well, as Matt pointed out, the roads are rough, and I think they'll be done in alphabetical order. I live in Wisconsin. I'm not seeing any light at the end of the tunnel. As far as our, I went out, this question came up at a recent forum, and I went out and I asked some business owners, really the same question. What is it that you need from the village, to be supported? And of course, Villa Park is an extremely diverse community in terms of their businesses. And you ask 10 businesses, you'll get 10 different answers. But one thing that they all had in common was none of them felt supported by the village. None of them. And I really believe that this is a philosophical problem, that it really needs to start from our leadership. If our leadership isn't out there and actively supporting these businesses, which has to trickle down to our department heads and has to trickle down to the employees, they're going to feel neglected. They're going to feel like they're outcasts. And that has to be an initiative that our leadership has to take. And if our leadership can't do it, then we need new leadership. I really believe this. As far as bringing in new businesses, again, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, and I don't really necessarily know how to bring in a mall or bring in a department store. But I have to ask myself, how is it that Oprah Terrace is doing it? How is it that Elmhurst does it? How is it that Addison does it? And we share the same thoroughfares with all these communities. Everybody here wants to bring in new businesses and big businesses and different businesses. We all share that in common. And I don't necessarily know the answer, but we do have someone who's employed as the head of our economic development. And again, these are questions for him. I want answers. Why aren't these businesses coming? We have an economic development committee. What's going on with that? I want answers. I don't have them, but I certainly have a lot of questions as to why these things aren't in existence. Why aren't more businesses coming in? As far as the permits go and the complications with contractors, we've had these problems. They're in existence. This has been a problem for a long time, and as yet, nobody seems to have fixed it yet. So these are things that I really want to work on. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next question. With the poor condition of our sidewalks and lack of street lighting, it's a miracle someone has not been seriously injured when walking at night. What would you propose to fix this situation? Mr. Cazzone.
Our sidewalk program, it's a tough situation. We have a 50-50 program where the resident pays half and the village will pay half. Unfortunately, in the tough economic times, residents may not have the money to pay their 50%. Or even in good times, they may not have it. I know the village, and we have pushed for adding funding to that. I think this year's budget extended that out another $50,000. It's still tough to get people to do that. The money is being spent on sidewalks, but until we can get residents in a point where they're willing to pay their share of it, it's tough to get all the sidewalks redone. We can look at, I know we have looked at getting different grants from federal government, from the state government, but again, that money is kind of tough right now too. As far as street lighting, I don't think that's ever been a real push in the village. We do have our own street lights. We have ComEd street lights. But as far as putting funding towards that, that's something that would have to be long-term, I believe. It's not something that's going to be done immediately, but it can be looked at. But as of right now, I think, again, looking at tough decisions, the money just is not there. We can always be pushing for it, and it's a good question, and maybe we should start. Our next budget, we should start putting money towards that, but as of right now, it's just not there.
Thank you. Mr. Wagner.
Thank you. This issue is very close to my heart. I want to just tell you a story about a woman who came to coffee with the board, and she lived up in the north side of town, and what she told us was that she has a young infant, and she likes to, she wants to take take the infant along in her carriage or in her stroller, and she was not able to stay on the sidewalk because of the uneven contour of our sidewalks. Well, we need to remedy that program. We do have the 50-50 program, but I think we need to definitely expand that. Budgets are very much indicative of your priorities, and I think in our next budget year, we need to increase that. I've advocated the village to apply for walk-friendly status. We now have a village staff member who is in charge of making sure that we apply for walk-friendly status. Why is that important? It's important because once we send in that application, they will tell us what things we need to do to improve walking in our town. Sidewalks are very important. I advocated for the application for a Safe Routes to School program, which included connecting areas where we didn't have sidewalks, so students would have a safer path to school. Unfortunately, we weren't successful in getting that grant, but I'm hoping that we'll continue with those types of measures to get more funding, to apply for grants so that we can connect our sidewalks. Areas where we don't have sidewalks, we need to put them in place. It's an important amenity for our town. So safer walking, more sidewalks, and more funding for our 50-50 program is important for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Corkery.
So, as I said in my previous answer, pedestrian and bike traffic is a big priority for me. And sidewalks are the basic unit of pedestrian transit. I'll echo what Bob said. I think that a lot of budgeting is a matter of priorities and values. A lot of the people I talk to want to see walking public utility infrastructure prioritized to enable that. And I feel the same way. As a trustee, I would definitely prioritize ensuring that we can walk, that the streets are well lit. Again, at least up on the north side, I've heard a lot of people say that it's dark, that there's not enough street lights, and that they don't always feel safe going out at night. And so that is definitely something that I think we could all benefit from prioritizing as a board. It would be great, again, for our businesses, and it would be great for our residents as well, to be able to walk, to be able to go out. I think it's a really important part of community cohesiveness. If you go out and you walk to the store, you might see 3 people on the way. You stop, you chat, you get to know your neighbors a little better. If I drive to the store, it's just me and the radio all the way. And I think that could be in addition to being safer and to being a good way to support our businesses, would be a great way to build community cohesiveness. So sidewalk safety is absolutely a top priority of mine, and a big part of that is street lights and adequate lighting as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bregman.
Well, I wish strollers came in 4-wheel drive, because I need one. I got stuck with the 50-50 program, and I can say that, when you're stuck with the 50-50 program, there's no great incentive to fix your sidewalk, especially if it's got to come out of your own pocket. And I understand budgets and everything. I understand that the village has to prioritize their money. I'm not going to go through and repeat everything that everyone else has said also, but I'm wondering if, you know, our public works, if this is something that our public works could do. Would this be cost effective? Same thing with our roads. You know, I know other communities have their public works department do their roads. I don't know whether it's cost effective. I don't know if it's something we can do, we can't do, or it's even been looked into, but certainly worth looking into. All of our projects seem to be contracted out by outside contractors. We go through the bidding process, and I see very few Villa Park contractors working in Villa Park on public projects. So my thought is, let's look into this. Maybe it's something that our Public Works Department can do, and maybe we can do it in a more cost-effective way, and we can get more done with the limited money that we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kumar.
Well, I have an interesting story with regards to a sidewalk. I live at 233 East Harrison Street in Villa Park, and when it's a newer house built by a local builder, and I love my house, except I have a sidewalk that goes nowhere. It goes to the neighbor's house, and there's no connecting sidewalk, and next door, there is no connecting sidewalk. And we've lived there for 20 years, and there are no connecting sidewalks. We can't walk to local grocery near our house. We have to take a car and walk across the street. The kids could never, you know, stop. The bus would never stop at our house. So sidewalks are extremely important to me because it's been 20 years and nothing has been fixed. Now, what do I know? Money's always short. I understand the 50-50 sidewalk program. It's very hard to get individuals to fix their sidewalk using the 50-50 sidewalk program. What I do know is recently, state of Illinois, there has been some law changes that allow sidewalks, for instance, to be put on the highway budget. So maybe we can get some sidewalk funding that way. So I start to do my research in that case and think about what are different ways, right, to get our sidewalks fixed. How can we get more money towards our town to connect the sidewalk? And what can we do in that instance? So I'm not saying that, you know, get everybody to pay for their own sidewalk. This is not easy to do. We're a town full of working people, and it's very hard under the 50-50 program to get people to fix their sidewalks. I even met a resident recently who said they didn't even know they had to pay 50% and got sent the bill. Okay, this can be very, you know, detrimental to the future of that program as well. So we need to be very informative with regards to our sidewalk programs, but I do advocate telling people about that. So telling people about the 50-50 program could help too. A lot of people don't even know it exists, which maybe some people will afford themselves to fix it that way. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Mr. Kozar.
So, coming in from a business perspective, part of the problem with our 50-50 plan is that I don't feel that the village bids out the cost of concrete appropriately. When we've replaced and we've asked the village to go into the 50-50, I'm getting prices back from them, which is more than I can get with my limited buying power if I go up and negotiate with the concrete companies. As a village, there's no reason why we don't have the power to negotiate because we're buying high volume. So that's number one. We can do it cheaper if we have the business sense to go in there and say, this is what we want, and we're gonna compete with all the various concrete companies. Number two, we can look at all our sidewalks, and we don't necessarily have to replace them right off the bat. We can look and say, can we put asphalt in here and patch the problem? Can we come in here and grind this off so we don't have a chipping or a tripping hazard? There's other alternatives that we can do besides spending, you know, $300 a square to replace a piece of concrete. So we have to look at it just like if I'm running this business or another business, I look at it and say, okay, what's my most cost-effective solution? And how good is this for me? Not just go right away to the most expensive solution and go that route. So that's what I would do. In terms of street lighting, we have to pay attention. That's a big part of our problem with street lighting. Right now, they redid the road on Myrtle. There's a street light right there. They never reconnected it. We've got a broken street light right there. So that's part of the village government to just go around and fix what is already there. Again, these are low-hanging fruit items that we can go and fix what we have. We don't have to necessarily install new electric and bringing it all, up. We just have to fix what we have. So alternatives and fixing what we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Tucker.
All right. I don't know much about sidewalks, I admit it, or streetlights, but I do know that our 50/50 program does need an overhaul, because if I'm a resident, I would have a really hard time doing that. But we also have a lot of trees in this town that have branches that go under those sidewalks that have caused the problem with a lot of our streets and our sidewalks in the town. Just like anything else from our roads and everything else, our sidewalks have been here for a long time. And I personally think that we should probably think of putting that on a rotating schedule too. We have everything else for police things and other equipment set on some type of a schedule. Maybe we should put the sidewalks and the streets on the schedule too. The street lights, by the way, a lot of them are belonged by ComEd. We don't have any control over when they change them or fix them. They're ComEd lights. The ones in the village, they take good care of. Those are the main things, but you've got to take into consideration, our lights in the village belong to ComEd. We can only tell them when our residents come along and say, hey, my street light's out. We can call ComEd and tell them that, hey, we have a street light out. Could you please come by and fix it? As I said, our street, I'm a runner. So yes, those sidewalks make a big effect. And I understand these people that have joggers and things haven't used the streets because our sidewalks are bumpy or not even. And fixing it on the 50/50 program isn't going to work because most of our residents can't afford that. I understand that. But we're trying as a budget, and we as a board here, most of the board members understood that. And we tried really hard to get more money in that budget to fix the 50/50 this year. And we need to keep doing that as the budget keeps on, making it really important that our sidewalks and our streets get done. And if we got a lighting problem, to check into that to make sure more street lights are put into effect in some areas. But they have to be brought up to the board to know that. And yes, we have a budget for everything else. Maybe we need a budget for sidewalks too and a better system.
Thank you. Mr. D'Alessandro.
All right, going last here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to say it too much different than what everybody else said. It's been great ideas. The biggest thing that I see is I'm come from strategy based. So I think we need to have some type of strategy to, all right, let's go out and let's look at the areas. Let's listen to where the concerns are and see what needs immediate attention. Okay, then let's plan accordingly, responsibly in a budget to be able to go fix things that need fixing immediately. And then let's see about a long-term plan of what ways that we could do this on a schedule, like Trustee Tucker was just saying. No one should have to feel unsafe, going around their neighborhood. No one should have to feel like there's not proper lighting. And I do believe that there should be more accountability on the board and the management to listen to concerns and complaints. So if there is a concern, let's try and attack it immediately, especially when it comes to street lighting, because at night you should not have to feel unsafe walking around your own town. But it comes down to strategy and managing money effectively to be able to fund these programs and taking ease off the burden off the residents. We are a working class town. There's flooding issues. Some people are trying, have to pay for backflow valves. And now you're saying you got to pay for a sidewalk too if it's in a really bad condition. So let's have a strategy. Let's listen to the concerns and and have a good plan in place.
Thank you. So I picked that question because as a former judge, I presided over a number of cases in my courtroom where people were seriously injured and tripping over uneven sidewalks. So I think it's a valid and a very good question to ask, and it's a valid concern for the community. All right, next question. Sorry, I have to throw in this little things once in a while. So I could. Is it too late to get on the ballot? All right. What is the most important change you would like to see for the village as a community, and how do you plan to move forward with this change once elected? Mr. Wagner.
Thank you. I think the most important change that I would like to see put forward is better communication. One example that I've cited a number of times is residents that have come from Charles Street, Maple Street, Pine Street, and complained about the fact that their road project was bumped from the referendum. They were not informed, and they came and they were righteously angry about it. So I think better communication with our residents is essential. One thing that I would institute would be an annual State of the Village address. I think this is very important. It's critical so that residents would know what the direction is for the village of the coming year. So better communication in that respect. We need to have more frequent communication with our residents through all the means that we do, through social media, through our newsletter. I think that we've made some good starts here, but I use the metric of other communities. I see other communities that communicate more frequently with their residents and maybe do a little better job than we do. So I think those things, a State of the Village address, better communication. I think we need to assign someone, maybe it's a trustee who lives in the neighborhood, assign that trustee to be a kind of a go-between between staff and residents to say, okay, this is why this happened, or this is why this project is delayed. Maybe the project is complex. Maybe funding is a problem. So we need to communicate those things to our residents, and I think that will eliminate a lot of the complaints and problems that we're seeing.
Thank you. Mr. Cazone.
I hate to keep repeating the same point, but I'm a businessman. And I think our biggest change here has to be getting more businesses into this town and getting more builders to build in this town. We've had questions about infrastructure and sidewalks, but how are we going to pay for this? We need to we need to raise our taxing revenue that's coming in from businesses, and if we can get builders to come in and increase the value of our homes, we are going to increase our property tax values. How are we going to do this? Like I said before, I would like to get together a commission of builders, of real estate agents, of staff, and people from our board, and see what it's going to take to get Villa Park on a par with Elmhurst and Lombard, where builders want to come into this town. People come here right now. When houses are priced correctly, they go fast. So we have a lot of new people coming into Villa Park, but there's also a lot of houses that need to be repaired or torn down and rebuilt. I don't want to see us become Elmhurst. I don't think we need to have $1.5 million houses here. But we've already seen in the last year 3 houses that were built on Villa and on Oakland that sold for almost $600,000. A couple of years ago, no one would have thought that would have been possible. But right now, we need to capitalize on the market in Villa Park, get our houses and our market up, our market values up. That will drive businesses, that will drive our tax revenue, and that's going to give us the money to put in new sidewalks, to put in street lights, to build our rec center.
Thank you. Mr. Kozar.
So the question is, what's the biggest change that I would like to see in Villa Park? Well, the biggest change I'd like to see in Villa Park is 3 new trustees and a new president. And I think that will make all the difference. But seriously, the biggest change that we can make in Villa Park is our reputation. Our reputation for being accommodating, for being welcoming, for being solution-based, for inviting new businesses in and new residents in, and having that reputation that we're no longer difficult to work with, but that we will sit down with you and we will work out whatever the issues are and we will find a solution. Once that reputation changes, I believe the floodgates will open and people will come and they will invest in our community, invest in our housing stock, and invest in the 5 economic corridors that we have. And when that happens, that tax money will come in that will offset our residential property taxes, and more money will flow into our town. That's the change that I see coming. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Corkery.
The biggest change I'd like to see in Villa Park, and it's kind of a tricky one, but I think it's something we can accomplish, is just to get more people involved in the governing of the town. I mean, this is a national problem that we have where people are not terribly involved in their democratic governance. And if you look at even here village board meetings in Villa Park, commission meetings, they're not terribly well attended. And I think it's easy to blame that on the residents, but I don't think that's correct. I think that it goes both ways in a relationship between a citizenry and a government. That people need to feel like their voice is being heard, that their input matters, that their time that they spend on their government counts. And I've heard from a lot of people that that's not the case in Villa Park. And so my biggest goal as trustee, the one change I'd really like to make, is to just get more people involved, to make people feel like they're heard, to listen, to talk, to communicate better, and to make it so that people feel like it's worth the time it takes to invest in getting involved in the government. I've heard from a parent here in Villa Park that the Willowbrook High School students, some of them are eligible to vote, some of them aren't, some of the seniors, have a big group chat where they talk about the upcoming candidates in the election, and that it's due in big part because me and Matt are recent graduates, a lot of them know us, and just by running, I think we've managed to get a lot of younger people involved in the running of this town. I can promise you nothing like that happened when I was a student at Willowbrook, and that was just a few years ago. So that's, I think, my biggest objective is to get younger people involved, to get all residents involved, to get people who might not be interested, who might not know how to get involved, to have them come to meetings, to pay attention, to make their voice heard, and to really make this a village government that works for everyone and listens to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. De Alessandro.
All right, my top priority to see changed is transparency. I have set that out on all my platforms that transparency is my top objective. Coming, personal talking point on that, the 800 block of South Michigan Avenue recently just had a nice large reservoir put in to reduce our flooding that was supposed to be connected to the Jackson Pond. It's been 3 years since the project was completed. The reservoir still is not connected to the Jackson Pond, and there has not been outward transparency on why that is the case. And I see that with projects across the town and issues, and you get vague responses. I submitted a complaint on the matter back in May when we had flooding again with it. I want to see transparency and ease of accessibility on our village webpage. By this transparency, we can redo our transparency portal to have its own separate page where we could see where projects are at. I'd like to see regularly updated, monthly updated updates on projects and what the issues are, what shortfalls there are, and where we're at with funding. If we have this new recreation center and we're gonna work on funding for it, we should be able to see on a graphic, here, well, this is where we're at with budgetary movement, with grants, to see where we're at and getting close to that goal, so that we can be fully transparent and we could be a forward-looking board on our residents so that they know what is going on, what their taxpayer dollars are going for, and how their projects are getting done. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bregman.
I, like some of the other candidates, are really pressing for new businesses coming in. Everything that we want to do, whether it's infrastructure, programs, building, everything we want to do all revolves around money. Right now we have the lowest paid police department in DuPage County. We have the lowest paid public works department in DuPage County. We have, I believe, the second lowest paid fire department in DuPage County. When I started the police department, we were the highest paid in DuPage County. And I don't know what happened throughout the years, but the reality is the money's dried up and everyone's tired of referendums. Nobody wants to pay any more referendums. We all want a new pool. We all want a huge parks building with recreational facilities, new parks, trails, sidewalks, my street. We all want these things, but the reality is there just isn't new revenue streams coming in. And we really need to focus on this. We need to be proactive on it. We have someone that we've hired that does this type of work. And again, I don't know the answers necessarily, but I have the questions. Why aren't these businesses coming in? How do we go about getting them? I've listened to the radio. I've heard communities advertise on the radio. Bring your business to our town. We'll help you out. We'll get you off the ground. Look at all the things that we can offer you. And I'm not necessarily saying that Villa Park needs to be doing that, but we need to be proactive in getting more businesses to come in. And we need to show our current businesses that we have that we do in fact support them. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kumar.
Well, everybody stated some problems that they have that they are more concerned with. I am more concerned with all of those problems because what I want is a strategic plan for the long term, which will address many of the problems at once, okay? I'm the where, what, why, when, and how of what's going to happen in Villa Park. Why is that? If you do not have a long-term plan, it doesn't matter how long you have an initiative. The plan for the pool, for instance, has been around since 2012. If we don't plan for revenue streams for that now, or plan for how and what we want to build now, it'll never happen. And that's what's true about Villa Park. There are many, many initiatives that have started by great community citizens. Since 2012, I said the park and the pool, and I've seen the business concerns. You know, the business community has strived to get new businesses in here for a long time in North Avenue and so on and so forth. We need some different planning for that. We need to process that planning. So what do we need is a couple of things. A clear-cut plan for the long run that involves all these issues so that if Villa Park reaches for the stars, they fall on a comfortable set of clouds instead of in a ditch. That's what we have right now. We reach for the stars and then nothing happens. And this is very concerning to me as a Villa Park citizen because many people have put in efforts. Many, many citizens in this town have put in effort to get a new pool or get a new, reach out to businesses or kind of address issues with current codes. And what it comes to is a dead end. So we need to plan how we do that. So that's my major goal right now, is to have a long-term plan to address the codes in the town, address the business concerns in the town, address what's happening with our recreation, and definitely address what's happening with our communication system.
Thank you. Ms. Tucker.
I have a problem with this. Simply because everybody up here has stated everything. As a whole, every comment that's been up here is a very important one, but every issue needs to be worked together. And my problem with in the village is what needs to be changed is transparency and communication. There's not enough communication between one department to another in this town. There's not enough communication from one business to another. Every business has a problem, but we're not communicating with them to get all those problems solved at the same time. Some of those things need to be issues that should be brought up. And I feel half the time that it doesn't get brought to the board until it's already become a disaster. And that should never happen. There always should be fluid communication from everybody in this village. And the fact that people come to the board and are afraid to talk because they're afraid they're going to be discriminated against or cut down for 3 minutes, they get 3 minutes to talk, is not right. To me, that should be removed, that if you have something to say and it's an important issue, you should be able to state that. It shouldn't be said, okay, you got 3 minutes, thank you for coming, we really appreciate it. Communication needs to flow better in this village with communication and transparency and set out so everybody knows what's going on. As they brought up, it would be nice to have a committee in here for certain issues. Have everybody get involved as a whole and not have just small groups. Make sure that everybody has a say in this village, not just a small amount of people. If there's an issue going on, everybody should have an equal vote and an equal input because it affects all of us. Every one of us pays the taxes here. Every one of us walks down those sidewalks and drives down those streets. Every one of us has to be important enough to know what businesses are important in this town and what isn't. Every one of us takes part in the school districts and has to work with them and have schools, those that have school kids in the thing are very important. But so are the people that have lived in this town for years that have watched kids go
please.
through.
Time,
Thank you.
please. Thank you.
I really think it's important we work together as a village.
And since at least one person thinks I should be running, the biggest change I would like to see is to hold this election in July. So we could do this on a warmer night. Thank you. All right, next question. If the board received a $1 million grant to use for the village any way you wanted, what would you do with it and why? Mr. Gazzone.
I'd have my street fixed again. If we have a $1 million grant, I think our infrastructure projects would be the first thing to go, that money could go towards. It'd be tough. $1 million does not go far when it comes to infrastructure. Looking back on our budget this year, I think we've got probably $20 million being spent on road and sewer and water projects. That's only a tip of the iceberg. To fulfill all of our infrastructure projects, I believe the last estimate we had was around $90 million. So $1 million does not go far. But I think we'd have to look at the worst street that we have here in Villa Park and get that one fixed. Unfortunately, $1 million would get us probably about 2 blocks. But if we get $1 million, we'd look at the worst street, and probably it would be Charles Street because that one's been put off the most. And that's what I would like to do if someone gave me $1 million. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wagner.
Thank you. I agree. It's a wonderful thought, $1 million in our hands. Of course, streets, but the one project that I would like to see us take steps towards doing is either a pedestrian overpass or underpass at our metro station. This is critical because of the issue. We have a development that's kind of on the cusp of happening. The Garden Station, Hawthorne Development is the new developer. That would be essential with that almost 330 unit development at our metro station. It would provide a connection between the north and south. It'd make it easier for pedestrians and bicyclists to get between. Many of you know that we have longer and longer freight trains, which delay us from getting from one end of town to the other. So I think having that pedestrian underpass or overpass is really important. It also would help with we have issues, and we recently had an issue with a fatality at our metro station. So I think it would make it safer for our commuters as well. It would be a very welcome amenity. I agree with all the other things, and I want to just hit on one thing. People mentioned the lighting. I think LED lighting is an important thing. LED lighting, you don't necessarily, we would like to have more street lamps, but LED lighting will provide more illumination at a lower cost. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kumar.
Well, $1 million seems like a lot to a regular family, but I guess you can go through it pretty fast in the circumstance of a village. I noted to build a pool in town will cost $16 million. And so knowing that and the way I know that money can get spent, it can go pretty fast. So what I would use that money for is a couple of things. I do agree that it would be great, like Bob said, to have an overpass. There have been a lot of issues with railway injuries in that area, and that would be a unique way to spend it. But I would like to use it also somewhat to start planning for our new community pool, if possible. So that's not full $1 million. I think with a couple of thousand of that, we can start some of our initiatives off and have some shovel-ready plans to begin with. So I would expect to split that money a little bit and use it towards multiple causes. It's just nice to get a gift if you can get $1 million and do something unique with it, if not possible, for this community that they can use right now and here and now. That's what I would say. As far as communication infrastructure, we could definitely use part of that money to improve communication infrastructure. We do not really seem to have a database system that will allow two-way communication within our system that we have, or our website right now. It wouldn't cost $1 million, and so that's a little expense that I can foresee will give us a lot better communication within our system at this point. So I would, rather than spend it on one single thing, try to improve multiple projects across our already started project pool at this point, and that's what I would say as a citizen.
Thank you. Mr. D'Alessandro.
I don't think it would be wise for one person to solely make a decision on where that money would go. So the first step I would take is to institute a public survey and offer up some options on some different things that we as a board see as necessary to improve in the community. Based on that survey, we would then use that to attack that area. I presume it would end up being somewhere along the lines of infrastructure, and then we would look at the most critical project that needs to get done, and let's attack that. But first, we need to have the community input and collaboration on the board to figure out what would be the best place to use that $1 million, and then use it there and do it the right way and do it the right way. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bregman.
Well, I'm going to forego the fixing of my street with this money and put this money toward, new businesses. Whether we break up this money into smaller grants to help businesses get off the ground, or we purchase properties for the purpose of redevelopment, my dream, my wish list would really be to buy up properties and or provide smaller grants to businesses that would like to start in Villa Park and get them off the ground. I think in terms of long term, we'll see much more money back in tax revenue that way than we would with the original $1 million that we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kozar.
So if somebody was generous enough to donate $1 million to Villa Park at large, what would I do with it? I would split it in half. And I would designate half for the residents and half for businesses. And I would establish a committee that would give microloans. Anybody from the community could apply for a microloan, that they had a house that had a broken window, had a furnace that needed doing, didn't have the financial resources to do it. We would loan them the money. It would be in the form of a loan, and ultimately it would go as a lien on their property. But so often, the difference between success and failure is just a few dollars. And having that $1 million grant, or in this case 500 and 500, could really make the difference in a lot of people's lives. The other $500,000 would be designated to the same concept, microloans for business. In the same form, you would have a lien against the business for repayment, but the difference between just a few dollars to get perhaps an advertising campaign done, or a piece of equipment fixed, or a facade improvement, or something to that nature. That's what I would do with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Tucker.
Not to thing, but I have the same idea as Mr. Cochran did, that we should use that 1 million. It's not worth making a project. We can't use it on any of the projects. Most of the projects in the villa are more expensive than $1 million. But putting it in a fund that can be used for people that are in need, that can't afford the 50-50 sidewalks, and put it in some fund that everybody can use, and as basically a loan or assistance for people around the town that need it. The elderly people that can't paint their fences maybe can use that to benefit until they do get the funds. I think that $1 million could be spread all over the village for different things. Yes, if a business needs assistance on doing something, they could go to that fund, to use that fund to assist them on getting things done. If there's a resident in the town that needs assistance in the background, it would be a good idea to have a fund to assist people. Even the organizations like the Kiwanis Club, the Lions, the VFW, who are suffering for money, that need some help sometimes. That fund could be used by them also to assist them on helping all the needy in the village. It's a fund, maybe a cash fund that would be used to benefit everybody and be able to spread it wide enough, because 1 million isn't going to help our infrastructure. It's a drop in the bucket. That's crazy to think to use it for that. And I would love to use it on a pool, but simply not enough. Most of our projects in this town, by the bids that are out there, take more money than $1 million, but it could be widely spread to assist everybody if it was put in a fund. And by getting interest, if it was put in the right place, that fund would grow, and that $1 million would grow to help other people throughout the village by using it.
Thank you. Mr. Corkery. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
So do you guys want the real answer or the fun answer? Because, all right, I mean, the real answer is just, obviously it would go to infrastructure, but I still got 1:45, so I'll talk about one of the things that hasn't been discussed as much that I'd like to see the village direct some discretionary money towards, which is public art. I come from a family where the arts are very important. I'm very involved in local theater, volunteer for a local theater group. My dad's a painter. You know, a lot of my friends, they paint, they draw, they sculpt, and I think it's really a very effective sort of lower cost way that you can attract business, you can attract interest to the village without spending a great deal of money. We have ordinances right now against having murals on buildings. I think that's silly. I think we ought to be encouraging people to decorate buildings. I think the village ought to do a lot more to make our public space more interesting and unique. One of the things that makes Villa Park such a great working class town is that we have a great deal of public space. We have a lot of parks, we have a lot of green space. One of the things I'd also use this imaginary $1 million for, if we had it and our roads were all in perfect shape, would be to look at our trees. A lot of the trees we have on parkways and in parks aren't being cared for as well as they should. A lot of times if they get sick, if they die, they'll get cut down and they won't be replaced. We're the garden village. That's one of the things that makes this town so attractive, is the fact that it's very green, that we have a lot of old growth trees, we have a lot of shade. Trees are great. They cool the street in the summertime. They make the place more attractive. And so if we had, we'll say, $1 million of money to spend in some discretionary way, I would like to invest it into aesthetics of public space, into getting local artists to create statuary and murals. It's a great way to support local artists we have here in town who are struggling like everyone else as a result of the COVID pandemic. And I'd also like to see the village do more to look after our green space, our trees and our bushes, and make sure that we remain the garden village for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. What are your plans for improvements in the village? For example, the train station area, the vacant property next to the Pioneer, and any other improvements you would consider important? Mr. Wagner.
Thank you. There are so many things that I'd like to see improve. I think you mentioned the parking lot near Pioneer. I think we need to have better signage so people know that there's a parking lot there so that it gets used. We mentioned trees. I think urban forestry is a very important thing. It's a critical amenity. And one thing that I've done is kind of a small program through the DuPage Environmental Division. We made tree seedlings available to village residents. I pushed staff to submit a grant recently to a group called Trees Forever. This is a grant that's providing trees for communities that were hit by the derecho, which hit our town and knocked out many of our trees. I would like to see us devote more resources towards forestry. We have many stumps that have been knocked ground. We need to trim our trees, and I think we need to do more there. There's so many other things that we need to do. The train station area, we created a transit-oriented development there. I think that the garden station development is going to be a great catalyst for that area. I mentioned taking baby steps towards moving towards construction of a pedestrian underpass or overpass. I think that's critical. I think that once that development starts, that area is going to take off. And I think that we need to take steps to make that area on the north side to beautify it. We've already taken some steps with the project with the street lighting and the sidewalks and the planters in that area. But I think we need to do more, and that can be an area that will really take off.
Thank you. Mr. Gazon.
Could you repeat that question, please?
Certainly. What are your plans for improvements in the village? For example, the train station area, the vacant property next to the Pioneer, and any other improvements you would consider important?
Well, starting with the train station, as Bob just mentioned, we have a development that's going in there that hopefully will be beginning this year yet. They're still working on some issues, but I think we need to work with them as much as we can as a village to get them whatever they need to get that project going. That'll beautify that area. It'll get development going in that area, and maybe eventually it'll give Villa Park a downtown. Villa Park's the only town along the railroad from Elmhurst probably all the way out to the end of the line where there's no downtown area by the train station. I think this development will definitely help us get in that direction. As far as by Pioneer, we've had some developers that want to come in there. We are using it as a parking lot right now. I agree we need to get better signage there. I've had discussions with the village manager about getting larger signs to get people to know that there is parking there. When the summertime comes, this area is going to be a hot area, and parking is going to be a premium. And people will just have to park there and walk down here, but they have to know that there is parking there. But I would like eventually to see that developed with maybe similar to what we've got at the train station. Residential, commercial on the first floor, residential, but give us enough parking so that we don't lose a lot here and we still have enough parking for the businesses in this area. And finally, I do agree. I think we need, we are a garden city and we're a tree city every year, but we need to spend more money on our trees, not only trimming and cutting them down, but replacing them. We don't do enough to replace the trees that we've lost. We've lost a lot over the last few years, and we need to keep replacing them.
Thank you. Mr. Bregman.
Well, redevelopment is a big one. And again, I'd like to see an aggressive approach taken toward redevelopment. Villa Park has this habit of kind of going halfway with projects, and then it sits for a long period of time. A number of properties were purchased on North Avenue. They sat for years before anyone had any interest in them. And I think, again, we need to take a more aggressive approach in finding developers that want to come in and develop it, but also have a realistic plan in the development, not just develop anything, but something that the people really want here. Whether it's retail or commercial, it has to be something that the people really want here, and that'll be successful here. Not every business will be. So some real planning needs to take place there. As far as beautification, it's got to be a high priority. That's what's so great about the village at this point. It's very family oriented. I'd love to see it even more family oriented. I'd like to see something done with the Lufkin area again. Tear down a pool, but then it sits. How long is it going to sit? When will it be redeveloped? So again, I'd like to see more redevelopment and more things that are family oriented to continue the kind of beautification and family oriented atmosphere that Villa Park has.
Thank you. Ms. Tucker.
Let's start with the parking, our village parking thing. Yes, we do need more signage over there, but as my goal for that parking is to continue to develop it so that in the future we can use it as a parking area for the new rec center and pool that is in the future plan here. We need that parking so that we can make a good size rec center and pool to develop it, so we don't have to use it on that land. So by improving our village parking lot, we'll have parking for all the businesses here. We'll also have parking for the future rec center and pool to have spaces for it. One of the things that they are correct, the Garden City, we do so much treatment for our parks department on the Prairie Path and the Western Avenue. We also need to do the same thing with our public works to get them more involved with our forestry department to take care of the trees and do it in a section. When they chop down a tree, they need to get rid of the stump and put a new tree in the same time. It needs to be coordinated instead of piecemeal. On a budget, it should be set all together. There's some areas in here in the redevelopment that we do part of it and then we forget about the rest of it. And it takes years before it gets put in, like planting grass. We take things out, we don't come back in the parkway and plant the grass to develop it. It sits there in a dirt pile for a while. We need to make the systems all coordinated together on that. You stated something else on that, besides the parking lot.
The Pioneer.
Pioneer parking lot, yeah. You said,
any other improvements that you
any
would
other
consider
improvements in the village that need to be done. Basically, we need to get develop a system that everything works together. So we have to have a structure, a system in here to develop things. The green garden thing, I agree. We need to get that development in, help them get in there, give us some support that would be a tax break for everybody. The north side and the south side could get developed together that way.
Thank you.
We could have a system to go through to get them connected.
Thank you. Mr. D'Alessandro. Excuse me. All right, excuse me. All right, look. Now, Excuse me, all right? Thank you.
All right, thank you. So we talked. You talked about the Pioneer Feed parking behind there and the train station. I think the parking's great for this booming area town. And to kind of be redundant on my fellow candidates, we need more signage there. People need to know that there's the parking there. As far as the train station, everybody's kind of talked about the areas around the train station, the development. I actually, in talking with a resident, they wanted to see the actual train station beautified. That member was a member of the Garden Club in Villa Park, and he said, if we could, work with the Garden Club in the village and come up with a plan to beautify the train station, be a great way for young people who are going to come here to have an inviting place to travel to work, with a lot of people commuting to the city on Metro. Another thing, big thing is just kind of enhance our park areas. That's another concern that I've in talking with residents, is just seeing some empty areas. There's an empty lot on the north side of town that our parks and rec division upkeep, but it's just a bunch of shrubs. I had a resident suggest a park there. There isn't really the accessibility to parks for young kids on the north side of town, and they should have they should have parks there as well. And then comes back to the Lufkin Park complex has to be used for recreation due to the deed, which is great. A couple ideas that I've been floated are, either having some tennis courts or a basketball court there with a playground, or even another idea is to have a playground, but also keep some greenery, enhance the greenery, and we could put I'm an avid disc golfer. We could make a small beginner six-hole disc golf course. Anybody from 10 to 90 can play disc golf, and it brings a new sport, a new way to get outside. So those are my ideas for improvements on the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Corkery.
I'll try to keep this one sort of short because I'm afraid I'll repeat myself a lot. But again, my number one priority for development is making it easier to get around town, to work on infrastructure. One of the things that's in the works right now is a project that would connect the Salt Creek Trail to the Great Western and the Prairie Path. I think that's fantastic. If I'm elected, I'll do what I can to see that through, and definitely like to see more of that. I'd like to see similar development for pedestrian and bike traffic down on maybe St. Charles. That should be a big part of our downtown. It connects the Ardmore area to the Villa area, and it's just difficult to walk. You feel nervous. If you're a parent, you don't want your kids down there. So that is something I'd like to look at. I know I already talked about trees, but again, trees and plants are a big one for me. Like I said, they cool the street in the summertime. We got a lot of problems with flooding in this town, as you all know, and the roots of the trees can help with that significantly. They can make a big difference. Of course, they make oxygen, which we all need to live. In regards to the parking lot over there, I think that's a great thing. We definitely need to have more support for parking. When I talk to business owners in the area, that is really their number one concern, is that their guests, their customers are having to park far away. Over at Pioneer, those 50-pound bag bird seeds, 50-pound bags of birdseed are not easy to carry 3 blocks. I can tell you from personal experience. So I'd definitely like to see better signage there. We can look at whatever else we would need to develop in order to best meet the needs of the business community here in town. In terms of Lufkin and Jefferson, I'd like to talk about those both briefly. I'd like to see more recreation at Lufkin, and I'd like to see a long-term plan for Jefferson. With Lufkin, it wasn't a surprise that Lufkin was getting old. And there should have been a plan in place, I think, to replace it as soon as it reached the end of its useful life. We're 3 years out now from the closing of Lufkin, and it's still just an empty field. Jefferson's getting old. I'd like to preserve Jefferson as long as I can. I'm a former Mariner, used to swim there, and I've got a lot of happy memories there. But I think that we ought to be planning now so that when our facilities such as, say, Jefferson Pool or the Iowa Center reach the end of their useful life, we're ready day one to begin to replace them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kozar.
So I think your question was, what would I change?
What are your plans for improvements in the village? For example, the train station area, the vacant property next to the Pioneer, and any other improvements that you would consider important?
So the biggest improvement that I want to bring to the village straight away, although I've heard some really great aspirations from the other candidates here, is as I've been canvassing around and talking to different families and people in Villa Park, there has been an overriding comment to me that they feel like it's an us versus them with the village. And it shouldn't be us versus them, because it's just us. We are one community, one village. This is something that I know that I can directly change and affect in Villa Park. Everybody deserves to have an advocate on the board. When you have a problem, you'll be able to come to me, and I will make sure that your problem is heard. And I won't push you off and say, go talk to so-and-so in the village, and then whatever your issue is dies a slow, quiet death, and nobody knows about it. What I can do is I sit on the board, is I can continue to bring up the issue, and I can ask at the next board meeting, what happened with so-and-so? What happened to this issue? This is something that we can directly control, and we can change this. We can change this disconnect with the village, where the village says they want something a certain way, but they're not willing to give guidance. They're not willing to work with us. We need to stop the us versus them and make it just us. One village, one community, together. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kumar.
Well, I have already started communicating with people. If you see, I wrote a post on what to do with Lufkin Park. And the reason I wrote that post is to get feedback from individuals in Villa Park. And I got some very interesting ideas, okay? There are many people who want a dog park in town. I would love to see a dog park in town. When I was walking around from door to door to door, what I found is every other house, or even every house in Villa Park, has a dog. So I got a lot of input that, wouldn't it be great to have a dog park in town? I have that in the back of my mind. Also, well, I understand the deed restrictions in Lufkin Park won't allow that, but what would I like to do with Lufkin Park? Well, let's repurpose it. Let's put in playground equipment. Let's put in grading for fishing. Let's put in some adult exercise equipment. Let's put in a place for people to take prom photos. Let's put in possibilities for walking and walking trails. And this is what I plan for Lufkin Park. Now, what do we plan for the space next to Pioneer Garden? Well, definitely this area needs parking. Okay, so that parking lot has to stay a parking lot. But what would be great is to have a nice aquatic center right there next to that parking lot. So that's what I plan for that area. Now, Garden Station is going to be a great influx into our community. It's a set of houses that are going to be built and that infuses a great deal of income into our community. So what can they do with Garden Station? Well, the developer of Garden Station already has plans for some restaurants in that area. That'll be great once they open up. It'll be great to get out of the train station and possibly grab a coffee there. It'll be great if there's a pizza place over there that you get off the train, you pick it up. I actually traveled on the train for years when I was a student. So I know what it is to get off the train and find nothing nearby. Actually, the greatest thing near there is only a laundromat. I still love that laundromat, and I still use that laundromat. And so that's,
please.
Yeah, that's what I would suggest for all these areas.
Thank you. We're likely to run over just a couple of minutes. Whoops. Well, maybe we're done now. I don't know. Give it a test, see if.
All right, I think we're back on.
All right.
All right.
Thank you. So we're likely to run over just a couple of minutes, but I would like to get one more question in, followed by the closing remarks from all of the candidates. So here we go. I have noticed in some areas of the village what appears to be multiple families living in small single-family residences. In addition, some of the residential properties are not being maintained and give the village a black eye. Do you agree that these appear to be problems? If yes, do you believe there is a failure of the code enforcement efforts in the village, a need for stronger ordinances, or something else? How would you address these issues? Mr. Gazzone.
Yes, I definitely feel that that is an issue. First off, the overcrowding of houses. There have been occasions in the past. A couple of years ago, there was a paramedic response call for a gas, I think it was a carbon monoxide leak. There were 11 people living in a single-family home. It was good because they all got out and they were all okay. However, there's very limited, the fire department code enforcement is limited on how they can go after people that are overcrowding. You have a privacy concern, so you have to be very careful on that. As far as maintenance of buildings, I think our code enforcement has been doing a good job lately, because I hear a lot of complaints that they are going around and giving people tickets or warnings for things that they always got away with. You have to balance keeping your houses up to par and not becoming an eyesore with being a pest and just going after people for no reason. But I think lately, I think our code enforcement is doing a good job. They need to be a little more fair with their decisions, and I think they're starting to do that also. But they are going after people that are not maintaining their homes and not following the ordinances.
Thank you. Mr. Wagner.
Thank you. I think this really is a problem. There is overcrowding, maybe in some neighborhoods. Too many people per residence. And in terms of enforcement of property maintenance issues, I think that our property maintenance team, I mean, it's their responsibility to see if we have a deficiency in housing, and they need to issue a citation if that happens. But I've encountered people, and I've heard some heartbreaking stories. A woman who told me the story that her husband was injured, couldn't go back to work. She is the sole provider, and she has cancer. And they have issues with their house, maintaining their house. I think that we need to try and provide resources to people that are up against it, that are having economic difficulty maintaining their houses. The county has a community services department that provides lots of different areas where they can help people, maybe a charity that can help you. I also encountered a woman on South Riverside Drive who told me that her family had moved away. This woman is in her 70s, and she was by herself, and her house was clearly in disrepair. So I need to think we may need to get maybe social services involved, community services department with the county, to help people who may be unable to take care of themselves, to provide them with alternatives on how they can maintain their property. Property maintenance is absolutely important to enforce, but we need to do it humanely, and we need to help people who don't have the resources to maintain their houses.
Thank you. Mr. D'Alessandro.
Yeah, I think both of them, both situations are issues. However, I do think handling it would work best in the overcrowding issue is to be able to work with the people and figure out what the situation is. Maybe not delve in, there are privacy issues obviously, but we don't know what situations are causing that. If those people need help, like Candidate Wagner said, that we could lead them to the right places. I believe in working with everybody. We are a community. We should be looking after each other. If people need help, they should be able to come and see what we can do as a village board and as a village, just to help them. In regards to property management, what we should do is, everybody should really want to keep up their houses, want to keep up their properties, and we should enforce those codes. But again, at the same time, we need to figure out the situations on why there's long grass, there's weeds. Someone could have just lost their job or injured. We can figure out ways to help them use the resources that we have. Maybe get them in touch with family members or community members who may not know them, and they could help them out, and just work together and have a collaborative effort to solve these problems while maintaining our code of ordinances. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kumar.
Well, overcrowding is a problem in itself only if it affects the safety of individuals. This is my feeling. Privacy is very important to me. I understand that some houses may have more or less than the individuals, but safety is the major concern that I have with overcrowding. So I understand that we need to enforce those laws with regards to overcrowding from that safety perspective. But as an individual, I also understand that there are trying times for people. I've gone through trying times, and many other individuals have gone through trying times. And those times we need to kind of address that problem in a way that it benefits both the household as well as solves the problem at hand. If you lose your job, it's very difficult sometimes to find a place to live, at least an affordable place to live in neighboring areas. So a lot of times that may be a time that you end up with overcrowding. If you are an immigrant, you may have come recently, you may not have the time to actually find a new house. So these lead to overcrowding. Now, if it is a rental situation, which can happen, there are many rental properties in town, we need to make sure that those renting those houses are not having overcrowding happening because they've been misrepresented or mistold by homeowners. So this also happens in this town. So it's a multi-faceted approach you need to take to actually address the problem of overcrowding.
Thank you. Mr. Bregman.
I'm not sure that overcrowding is a major issue. It may be, it may not be. In 29 years of law enforcement, I can't think of any real number of incidents where an overcrowding situation occurred and it was something legitimate versus something of someone's perception. I think you have to be very careful in terms of drawing that line, drawing those conclusions. People do have large families. How big is too many? What point does it become overcrowding? And I think you have to be real careful with that. With that being said, as far as the upkeep of homes, it is important that people upkeep their homes. It's important that the values stay as high as possible for everybody. Nobody wants the eyesore living right next to them. But at the same token, you have to be real careful about, what people have the capacity to do and what they don't have the capacity to do. If the village can help someone who can't help themselves, we should feel a sense of obligation in terms of either trying to provide resources for them or trying to help them within our own village. We do have the capacity to help people out when we can. But certainly, homes that are neglected, for no other reason that people simply don't feel like fixing them, I think our code enforcement does a pretty good job. Sometimes they could be a little more personable, but I think that overall they do a pretty good job in enforcing our codes. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Tucker.
Again, overcrowding is a fine line on how you decide where the line is for being overcrowding and what isn't overcrowding. I agree that, in some places like rental facilities, we probably shouldn't go in there and check, but we've got a privacy issue. We can't go check every house to make sure they've got the right number of people in to follow our ordinances. I mean, overcrowding is just one of those things that's a very fine line that you have to deal with code enforcement. As when you're speaking of code enforcement on improvement, and yes, the upkeep of houses is very important in Villa Park. It affects everyone and everyone in the neighborhood. If you've got a neighbor that's a slumlord or, you know, isn't taking care of things and the house looks terrible. I mean, I do believe our code enforcement has started to get a little more humane. They used to be pretty cruel on the area things and ticketing right and left. They have started to ticket more properties for reasons, but I also believe that they need to be a little more humane to what the situation is in the house if they can, and give them resources to assist them. There's a lot of community organizations here, like the Boy Scouts and church groups that would be willing to help homeowners, elderly homeowners, on having issues. And I think we should work in both hands to coordinate the homes that actually need to be ticketed and the ones that need just warnings and assistance to get their houses back up to standards, as our code enforcement would say. But everybody needs to work together in the village on here, and I think if all the houses were, you know, taken care of, it does make the village a lot more pretty, and we can all work together to make it a garden city with, you know, all the beautiful houses and gardens. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Corkery.
So I think there's two great questions here, and they both come back to one of the core things that I want to enact if I'm elected, which is compassion. I think as a village, the village government should be run by residents, and if it's run by residents, you're dealing with your neighbors, and you got to treat them like your neighbors. Overcrowding is kind of a thorny one. I agree with what Deepa said. As long as it's not a safety issue, I have no real problem with it. And I think it's a tough question because a lot of the causes of overcrowding are a lot bigger than Villa Park. You know, we're in not the best economy right now. One of the things I think we could maybe do, at least look at, and again, take a lot of resident input on this because I know this is a tricky issue, is multifamily housing, I think is great. If there's a lot of demand for people to live here and there's not enough supply, I think we need to look at increasing our housing supplies in any ways we can. There's a lot of ways you can build multifamily housing that are unobtrusive, 2 flats, 3 flats that will, I think, mesh with the neighborhood and not be objectionable.
Hey, come on. All right.
I'll be happy to talk with you afterwards.
Let him talk.
So that's one thing I'd be open to explore with the people of the town. Again, I understand that it's sort of a thorny issue, but it's something I'd definitely like to look at. In regards to code enforcement, I think that fining people 9 times out of 10 is absolutely the wrong approach. I've talked to a lot of people in town who've had issues with the code enforcement body, that they can't afford to keep up their houses, that they're suffering because they're out of work. They've had a medical emergency. They do not have the funds to work on their house. And sticking them with a big fine is not going to make it easier for them. It's going to make it harder. It's entirely wrong-headed, in my opinion. So, of course, there will be some cases where people simply don't feel like working on their property. But in my experience, almost every time it's due to circumstances beyond their control. I think these people are our neighbors. A lot of times they're our friends, and we should be looking out for them. We should be working with them to find a solution to make sure that the work that they have to get done on their house gets done, and not to just stick them with a fine and hope they either figure it out or move out, which is the approach in a lot of cases in Villa Park today. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kozar.
To the first issue of overcrowding, I would have to defer to the fire department and the police department and adhere to what their guidelines are. It is a very tough issue. We don't want to kick families out of houses. We don't want to penalize people. But I think we have to trust our experts, and in this case, our experts are the fire department and the police department. So I would want to sit down with them, and I would want to get their input. That hopefully is what is reflected in our ordinances. If the dictates of the fire department and the police department are not reflective of what our ordinance is, then we need to change our ordinances. But as to overpopulation, those are the two that we have to defer to. In terms of the other question, code enforcement and issues with people's houses. A lot of the comments that have been mentioned here are about working with the homeowners, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. The goal is to fix the problem. It's not to fine away the problem. So we need to first address the issue with warnings, require people from the village to go in and discuss what's going on with the homeowner. It goes right back to what I was saying earlier about the us versus them. We have to get rid of that because it's only us. And we have to look and see what could possibly be the solution. We have to bring in our non-for-profits. We have to bring in the various religious organizations that are in town, the the Scouts organizations and the different people and committees and whatnot that can donate time and help people that can't help themselves in terms of their property. So it's not about enforcing with fines, but it's about enforcing with community. Thank you.
Thank you. Each candidate will now have 1 minute for closing remarks. And Mr. Cazone, I'm going to start with you, please.
Well, first I'd like to thank you, Your Honor, for being here as our moderator. Jack and Karen, thanks for having us, and Leslie, thanks for setting us up. As I stated a couple times, I'm a businessman. And as president, I would bring my business experience to the village. We need to make tough decisions at times. And when you're on the board and when you're president, you have to know how to make those tough decisions and what decisions are tough and which are easy. I think we are in a great position right now in Villa Park to really come out of this COVID in a great shape. We've got a lot of businesses here that have survived the pandemic. We need to bring more in, and I think with my experience and with my business acumen that I'm the one that can do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wagner.
Thank you. We've heard a lot of, mention of problems, but I think there are many solutions. I think the candidates all have brought up some great solutions. And looking forward if I'm elected to your next village president, to working with everyone on a regular basis to find out what their solutions to problems. Over the summer, starting in the summer, I worked with Tri-Town YMCA with food distribution and coordinating efforts they called Nourish and Healthy. Their motto is stronger together, and I think that Villa Park is stronger together. We have a community that has challenges, but I think we have tremendous talents that will help us surmount these challenges. In closing, I want to just stress to folks that I had 32 years as a facility project manager. I'm currently working for the county health department, but I am transitioning towards retirement. And I pledge to be a full-time village president. I have the time to do that. I want to stress my endorsement by the Daily Herald and endorsements by people I know personally, like former village president Deb Bullwinkle.
Time.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Kumar.
Well, I'm a mom. I am who drives her kids to school every day. I'm also a community member who has changed a lot of things for District 48, for those of you who have been part of that. I'm also a person who is a business person who has quite a lot of business acumen in order to change the business situation around here. And I'm a planner who plans with the community. I never let them out. As an economist, I know that planning as a community is going to give greater returns for all of us than planning alone. So that's my basic agenda in joining this. And I'd like to tell you that as a strategist, I have great hopes for what Villa Park can become. It's really close to that state right now, and it is with your vote that we can make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bregman.
hope I'm still being coherent because I feel like my brain shut off about an hour ago from the cold. I just say God bless all of you who stuck it out because I'm freezing. Real briefly, you know, I never claimed to be the smartest guy in the room, but I like to think that I lead with a common sense approach. It's a real honor to be up here with all these candidates. Each candidate, you know, brings something completely different to the table. And, you know, all of them are equally qualified. What I bring to the table is, you know, 29 years of law enforcement experience and 29 years of experience as a village employee. I've worked with all the department heads. I've worked with 5 different village managers, 5 different chiefs. I've seen how projects get started, and I've seen where they end up at. And some do well, some not so well. So what I do is I just simply bring forth a different perspective to the table, and I hope I can do the village some good. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kozar.
So, God willing, and Villa Park willing, if you elect me as your trustee, I will be the only local business owner on the board. And I think that's very important to bring that perspective in. It's important to bring the perspective of business onto the board because running a town is a lot like running a business in the sense that we have to watch the money that we spend and watch how we benefit our community. My experience as an attorney will help me to advocate for everybody in town and make sure everybody has that voice. You can see my values through this property, from what Karen and I have taken in terms of the old abandoned gas station and what we've created as a truly family-friendly place where everyone is welcome, your children are welcome, your dogs are welcome, and it's a sense of community where people get together, neighbors get together. This is our value system. This is what I will bring to the board. And thank you everybody for coming out today, candidates included. Judge, thank you for suffering through this cold. But please elect me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Corkery.
I'll keep it brief and talk fast because you've heard from me a lot tonight and I can't feel my fingers. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to our hosts. Thank you, Your Honor, for moderating. The big thing, my biggest takeaway for this campaign and the thing I hope you'll keep in mind on Election Day is that my commitment is to the community of Villa Park. I think we have a really special town here. It's inclusive, it's diverse, we've got people of all ages, and people really do look out for each other here. I mean, that's why my family stuck it out here so long, is because there is something special here, where we look out for each other, we care, people are invested. I think that's hard to find these days, and I think we ought to fight really hard to keep it going here in Villa Park. And if I'm elected trustee, that's my promise to you. That's what I'll do, to keep you involved in the government, to fight for you, and to make sure that the things that we love about Villa Park remain in place for years and years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Tucker.
Oh, I'm freezing like everybody else. If you re-elect me, I will continue to be your voice, as I've been for the last 4 years. I think it's real important that you know that I take Villa Park personally. As you can tell, I take very much pride in this town. And I will continue to work forward to get a rec center and a pool in this town. I also will look forward as being a specialist in recreation to keep our parks going here. There is development going in Lufkin Park, and there is plans being designed by the Rec and Park Division right now. So look forward to that coming in the future. I also am going to strive to keep the roads and sewers going and help people with the flooding as much as I can to keep that going with funds and organizations going on. I listen to you and I speak for what you do. I stand up for the people of Villa Park, even though sometimes it isn't the best choice on the board. I ask the tough questions, and I speak for the people of Villa Park on doing that because you're the ones that tell, as my boss, As a trustee, you're the one are important in this village, and your voice is the most important thing to me as a trustee.
Thank you. Mr. D'Alessandro.
First off, I'd like to thank my fellow candidates for wanting to come out and do this. Your Honor, thank you for moderating. Jack and Karen, thank you for hosting. Staff, thank you for keeping everybody entertained and occupied. And everybody else, thank you for coming out and showing your commitment to Villa Park. What you see is what you're going to get. I'm going to tell you how it is. I'm going to be straightforward, and I lead with honesty and integrity. Those are two of my core values that I live with. As you can ask my friends and family, this is something that I've been passionate about for a long time. And as you know, a 24-year-old, I think I'll bring young, fresh perspective, fresh energy, and I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and do the work for the people of Villa Park. As my group of friends decides, where we want to live next, I have always looked at Villa Park as a place that I wanted to grow up. And I want to raise a family and see it through, and I want to put that commitment into the village board and see the growth and potential that I know that this village can get to. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. I want to thank this great group of candidates and congratulate them for this great conversation we've had here tonight. And I want to thank all of you, too, and the people that are watching. I guess we're live streaming. Whatever that means. I'm kind of old, so I don't know. But thank you all for coming out tonight. It's been a cold night. I see the fires are going. I don't know if they're helping, but we all appreciate it. I know the candidates appreciate your being here and sticking it out. And again, thank you all very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Judge Souter.